skydiving and making a podcast at the same time?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Man, two things at once?
It's multitasking.
I don't. So it's not like texting and driving. This is like safe multitasking.
Yep. So people are watching us right now.
And then Shane's going to teach me that I can like go on here and watch questions go by or something.
Just every now and then I'll mention to you to.
I would love for you to say, "Hey, Ernie, wake up! Somebody asked this," because I'm going to go see if I can.
I'll try to keep my eyes
If
on
I
it.
was just a kid on the interwebs, would I find this right now? I'm trying to go find it.
Well, you got 9 people watching you right now.
9 people. Wow. I didn't even know I had that many relatives.
All right.
All right. How cool is that, though? Just totally unscripted. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Mike McAmeal and Mike Gillette just ran into each other. Not like physically ran into each other. Both 82nd Airborne in what years? 82 and 86?
Yeah, early 80s. We were both in the same battalion, different companies at the exact same time. And like, here it is 35 years later, and we run into each other. Hey, telling stories.
So civilian, never been there, done that. Ernie, got to see you. That was super cool because it's kind of like, you guys are like, oh, yeah, you were there, I was there. And then you were like, holy cow, we were there. Like, we ate in the same place, knew the same people. And
And that first sergeant he was talking about, Sergeant Tribble,
Yeah.
that guy was a maniac.
Really?
He was in a 1st Ranger Battalion prior to becoming our first sergeant. And people that are non-military, the first sergeant is the highest ranking enlisted person.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in charge of all the, privates, which I was one at the time. And that guy was scary. I mean, he was the word intense, like his picture is by that word.
What's funny is Gillette said, that guy was crazy. And you're like, yeah, he was crazy. So that's 2 people making him crazy. He could be listening somewhere. You might have hurt his feelings.
I don't know. He used to. So we used to have to do this thing called charge of quarters, right? Like periodically, they would pick a couple people, a private and NCO, to a non-commissioned officer to basically stay up for 24 hours and watch the company while everybody slept, so nobody could get in. Blah blah blah. First Sergeant Tribble used to sleep in his office, and he would come out at like 3 o'clock in the morning and mess with you, like just.
Was this to
torture you.
further? Was it like to make you tougher and help, or he just?
Well, he was all about the standard, and he'd come out and make sure your uniform was good, and if you were buffing the floors correctly, and were you doing your job, and God help you if you were not. Yeah, he was a no baloney kind of guy. He was intense. So that's when I say people are like, you're a badass. I'm like, no,
Well,
no,
you are.
I know
You are.
No, I'm saying in general, when people use that word, I'm not saying specifically to me,
I
but I'm saying
understand.
when people say, hey, I'm a badass because I ran a marathon. No, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like First Sergeant Tribble, that guy was a badass. You're not even close to that guy, so don't use that word.
Is that like Plumlee from like We Were Soldiers? When
Yes, he's a badass.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
That word does not mean what you think it means.
Yes. Yes. I can't even remember that guy's name from that movie.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is. All right, let's get some real work done.
So we're
here.
Facebook Live. We got 11
We're at
people
Facebook
watching.
Live. I don't even know whether to look over there or look over here. I'm so confused. I'm so confused.
Real quick, I took away your lower third. What did you want to have down there? Real quick.
We're like
You
discussing.
can put 18zulu.com on there.
Yeah, 18zulu.com.
Spell it out. Yep. There you go.
18 Zulu. I'm learning how to spell live on Facebook. All right, I'm gonna go find these questions you and I talked about.
All right.
You had some good ones.
Is that good?
Yep.
Aaron Janetti, I'm gonna bring that up. What you got to say about that?
All right, so I had I kind of sent that to you as a reminder because I've been talking to Aaron back and forth about the active shooter response course. He's the big kind of developer of this program within the ICE training company, which you and I both teach, through their, a lot of their curriculum. And so I talked to him a lot back and forth, and what brought this up is I was taking some mandated training because I work for a county agency and we have to have, mandated active shooter training. And one of the questions I had to answer on my test was they gave you multiple choice, and it was all on the run, hide, fight scenario, or they called it escape, hide, fight.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was,
What order?
what order? And my answer was, there is no order. This is a stupid question.
Yeah.
And then you and I both got in a Facebook conversation with this gentleman from, I think he was from Missouri, that kept trying to convince me that, in fact, there was an order. And I just thought we could talk about why I say there is no order.
Why do you feel there is no order?
Because, number one, everybody's going to react as an individual.
Hold on. Can you hear that?
That's a monster.
All right.
All right. So everybody's going to react as an individual, realistically thinking that everybody is going to say, hey, wait a minute. I have to run before I hide.
Yeah.
And before after I hide, then maybe I can fight. It's not going to happen. It's going to be situational dependent. It's going to be, you and Mike talked earlier about mindset. It's going to be about the person's individual mindset. Maybe they're not mentally prepared to fight, or maybe they're so frozen with fear that they can't run. You cannot pre-program people's reactions. They are going to react however they react based on how they process the information and their wealth of experience and their training.
Sure.
So I'm saying that you cannot tell somebody there's a specific order. You can train them to do techniques, sure, but you can't dictate the order they're going to do them in.
No. And, I like to ask simple logical questions. Like, I jumped in on your thing, not that I have to defend you on Facebook, but I simply ask him, what about the very first people in the very first room when that guy comes to the door and starts killing people? And his generic answer was, well, you can't do anything to help them.
So we're just going to give up?
Yeah, I guess, what happened to, oh my God, absolutely horrifying that someone would come into your home room and shoot somebody in front of you, but it doesn't mean that now your option is when the bad guy has a gun and is between you and the door, now we're going to throw things, tackle things, do things, all that, right?
Right.
So,
and the other thing, this run, hide, fight scenario is flawed because a lot of the training of this type is done by law enforcement, which is awesome.
Sure.
They get that training out there. They generally do it as a public service. But think about the context in which it's given, okay? Number one, I don't think any law enforcement agency or government agency, for liability purposes, is going to encourage people to fight,
yeah.
okay? They are going to tell them to use the other options first because, let's be honest, they don't want to get sued later.
Sure.
And if they tell people to fight in the sue-happy, litigious society, they could potentially be blamed for, hey, you told me to fight and I got my arm blew off, so it's your fault, right?
Yep.
So they worry about that. And if they say they don't worry about that, I'm going to say you're worrying about that. The second thing is officers, we talk a lot about dynamic critical incidents, and one of the things we use to describe them is that they're chaotic.
Sure.
Police don't like chaotic things. Law enforcement does not like chaotic situations. They want to have you react in a way that's going to make it easier for them to react. They don't want a bunch of good guys mixed in with the bad guys, in close proximity if they can help it. So when they enter the hot zone or the facility, it's easier for them to control the situation. So that's another reason they want you to hide or run first.
Sure.
Rather than, get mixed up. And I'm not saying that those other, running and hiding are not valid things. I'm not saying that, hey, we need to fight everybody. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that's why they teach you that way. And you also can't pre-program how people are going to react. They're going to react the way they react.
Sure.
So,
in the class that you teach, you refer to a couple different cases, and some of them are famous. Some people don't bother to read about everyone because, if 20 people weren't killed in a school, then they don't remember it. But there's ones where teachers interacted by simply yelling at the guy, yelling at the active shooter.
Right, that was up in Washington State.
So, the point is she could have ran away. Yes, she could have, but, like you said, every situation is so different. That's the whole idea of chaotic, right? There's no dance plan that's going to work for every single one. And, when you say fly by the seat of your pants, you really are flying by the seat of your pants in that. Because what rooms it happen? Is there exit? Is there windows? Is there any other way out? And
it's totally dependent on how you process information, and it's going to depend on the individual circumstance. You and I could go through a bazillion scenarios in this room right here we're in right now. Hey, what happens if somebody comes in?
I thought only me and George Bush use bazillion.
No, I use it all the time.
I like
bazillion, that's 3 people.
I like it.
But it's never going to happen the way we practice. So you're going to have to process that and, improvise somewhat based on your experience and training.
You can't just stomp your feet and say it didn't go like this in training.
Right, exactly.
No, this is not the way it worked in training.
It's not the way it worked in training. Hey, I'm supposed to run first.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
So I just that question is poorly structured, and it's not correct. You can't decide a specific order in these situations.
Agreed. It's always great to run away and escape.
It's always the best option.
Always best. if
But-
it can happen.
but it might not be an option.
No. All right, let's get some stuff covered here. The Texas robbery. That's happened since we talked last time. Are you referring to the jewelry store robbery?
Yeah, so I'm talking about the jewelry store robbery where 2 individuals intervened, and unfortunately, one "quote unquote" good Samaritan was killed.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on that?
Remember, this is where people say Ernie the spineless because he doesn't step in there and do things, this and that. I'm not going to get killed over trying to stop some place from losing, like, money, goods. Again, here we are armchair quarterbacking, right?
Yeah, we let's go out there and say we're not saying
No.
God rest his soul, but
Yes. Because
we're not saying this guy did anything bad. We're just saying that there's better ways to handle things.
Well, most of the violence, and you're exactly right. Here's where, start off, just like you said, we're going backwards, knowing all the facts now.
Yeah.
People didn't get shot and violence didn't hurt, or, violence didn't happen, and he didn't even hurt other people until after that engagement, correct?
Correct. So,
As he exited the malls when more violence
so
happened.
the way I read the information we had,
Mhm.
2 individuals were robbing this jewelry store. An unarmed individual tried to stop both of them, was shot and killed. A concealed carry holder then drew his weapon, shot one of the robbers who was wounded. The other one ran away through the mall and wounded several more people as he exited the facility.
Sure.
So-
And let's clarify that, because some guy stepping in trying to stop them isn't, is it honorable? Yes, I get it. And like you said, I'm not going to devalue what he did. You had a secondary person reacting to, when I say real violence, now you have people like shooting people, right?
Right.
And absolutely I understand there's people out there going to say, well, I'm stuck in this store, I'm stuck in this small part of the mall, and I just saw a guy shoot somebody. But again, when you said processing information is, obviously this person must have saw all this go down to make that kind of decision that, hey, I'm going to draw my gun as Joe Blow the citizen and shoot this guy because he's obviously the robber. And does he have every right to do that? Yes. When we say, what would I do? Look back, are we with our family? Are we not with our family? Are we surrounded?
Yeah, who are you responsible
Who
for at that
are
point?
you responsible for? And again, that is the hard part is I'm most likely to ever go, let's use this technical term, if I'm going to go be dumb and be a hero, and I mean that as in put myself in grave danger to try to help other people, I'm going to do that because I really do perceive a lot of innocent people are about to get hurt. You know what I mean? Or this is just like what I talk in class Wednesday night, and people can say, I'm not putting one life ahead of the other, as in, oh, Mike's 50 years old and this kid's 14, so Mike can die and I'll let the. But every situation's different. I would do a lot to try to save some kids. I would do a whole bunch of bad things to keep my kids safe. You know what I mean? But
Well, they're on that little small list that you
there's
always talk
the
about.
small bucket. Thank
Yeah.
you, Andrew. The small bucket. But yeah, I'm not. The older I get, when I say the wiser I get, it's, you can call it wisdom. All I mean is there's just not a lot of things I'm willing to go that far for. And I know, you and I get some feedback from people going, we need more people to stand up and do what's right. But I get that everybody likes a story where the good guys win and the bad guys go to jail and all that. But who got injured that didn't have to in this scenario? And when I say didn't have to, is it happens. Call it collateral damage, call it whatever. But when I read about, there was innocent people shot, I'm like, oh man, is this going to be like the first story we hear about a CCW holder getting his gun out and hitting the wrong people? You know what I mean? Everybody perceives that that'll happen.
Yeah.
I still don't know any stories like that at all. But when it first started rolling out, I'm like, and then it turns out that the guy basically just ran crazy shooting people as he exited, the bad guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the I don't know if it's a valid perception or not, but I get a lot of crap from people we know and just general people for being harsh on the term sheepdog because I really think it's overused.
Mm-hmm.
And it, yeah. So it hurts some people's feelings sometimes when you say you're not sheepdogging, right? That is not a thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Inserting yourself, trying to be some sort of hero when you don't have the training or ability or the mindset, or the last part is it's probably not a good idea. Maybe you have all those other things,
Yeah.
but it's the wrong time.
Because when you say
right?
you don't have the training and all that, that sounds like a challenge. I get people are like challenging of who the hell do you think you are, especially Ernie, because I'm not Special Forces Ernie like you
I'm
are.
not saying that.
But I'm going to go back to the end thing is it a good idea? Could I die? And
Well, that goes with right. So what?
there is no zero risk gunfight, right?
There is no zero risk gunfight, and it doesn't even have to be a gunfight.
Yeah.
Let's say that those guys in that jewelry store were not armed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they're not armed with a firearm. Let's say they're armed with a an edged weapon,
Stabby.
or they're armed with a crowbar, something, right? Do you still want to intervene? I mean, do you have such great knife defense skills that you're going to, not with any kind of defensive tool yourself, interject yourself? That's what I'm talking about.
No.
Right?
But
is it a smart thing to do? And to think that you're always going to be the guy that's going to save the day is not realistic.
So let's pretend like you just heard my entire interview with Mike Gillette, which you did, right?
Yes, I was sitting there.
But you do understand what he talked about too is there are people that see certain situations and separate the emotional response. There are people that just like, this is unacceptable. Literally down to the thing, let's say use that very example. You could have a guy standing in there that's like, my parents have a jewelry store just like this. This reminds me of where I grew up, and I remember all the problems my parents had, and I remember that time they were robbed. All that life experience for this one dude, we're just making this up, could be like, I'm not going to let this happen. Not save the gold, not save the money, but it is unacceptable to let bad guys get away with bad guy things.
This aggression will not stand, dude.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
So
Yeah.
I can understand. I've been very open with people, and we'll talk about. We should just have an entire podcast about Ernie's bad decisions sometimes. But I have absolutely.
Maybe we should have two.
Yeah, we should. I've absolutely made the wrong tactical choice by being mad, by being angry. And a lot of students that I've talked to either in class or after class, openly in front of people, when I tell them this is, hey, I'm still alive and everything worked out, but don't go do what I did. I didn't do anything illegal. I'm just saying it wasn't smart. Don't exit your house to go deal with bad guys in your backyard and leave your house unlocked while you deal with bad guys in your backyard that a couple seconds ago you didn't know they were there. So really, do I know how many more there are? And did I just leave my 2-inch thick door wide open for them?
Right, and that's where the training comes in. And I'm not trying to disparage anybody that maybe has a moral code that, like you said, they're like, I can't allow this to happen.
Sure.
But I'm saying if that is your moral code, you have to combine that with some reality, and then maybe you get that training or whatever, but insert yourself blindly into a situation that you don't know if you can handle it. Maybe I can handle it, maybe I can't. You need to go into a situation with at least the confidence or the knowledge that you think you can handle it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, bad things are going to happen.
I'm just sad that we lose a good Samaritan like that.
Absolutely.
Because I understand everybody wanting to be, I want to be surrounded with these people that say we need justice, blah, blah. Well, I wanted that guy to still be alive. I'm sure his wife still wants him to be alive. And we need good people like that in this country. We need less bad guys, but
way less bad
I don't think everybody's ready to implement my plan, like if I was president. So, do we have a single question yet, Mr. Producer Guy? Nobody cares. Just say it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But you know what?
He's got a super cool headset. He looks like he's the captain.
We got 20 people watching this still. Oh, 18.
Oh,
Oh,
you
geez.
lost two just by acknowledging.
Just because I started talking.
I want to see what this looks like. I'm learning all about technology. Hey, look, I can turn this way. It's like delayed.
Yeah, it is.
Super
a little,
cool. I'm going to prop it up on my monster.
There for sure is a delay. Yeah.
If we talk about, I bet if we just started talking about Jesse Lennox as a subject, we would all of a sudden get thumbs ups. You and I can talk all we want. There's no thumbs ups going by until we talk about like the ox,
All right, you got to talk about Jesse.
or you use I don't know, the word free something.
There you go. You can see it.
Look at that. That's what real life looks like. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's not me looking into this camera on the podcast. You got some other crazy angle going on. I feel like this is what it's like to be in the movies and say, what camera am I talking to? Because you see that happen once in a while.
Yeah. Be natural, man. Be natural.
I'm totally natural. I'm totally relaxed. And I've only had 1.5 monsters, so I need a different prop for my phone. Okay, other subjects. What are we talking about?
Well, was the third question I sent you was
You're supposed to know the third question you
well,
sent
the
me.
third question I sent you, I can't remember what it was.
Here, I'll tell you, because we're
tell me.
super organized.
We are.
Here we go.
as usual.
Here we go. You're under Mike SF in my phone. That's awesome. I'm still super excited about the smile you guys had on your face when you're like, holy cow, we're in the same place.
Reminiscing about stuff is cool.
All right. You gave me the bad subject to talk about, but it's real. And it happens every year in this country, multiple times a year. So that would be the story about, unfortunately, the husband that shot his wife
Right.
fatally. And it's when I say it's easy to see how this happens, it is easy to see how it happens. The kid comes running into the room, and this is the story and the facts, but I'm gonna give my spin on it. Is if you're home sleeping alone, whatever, you're the parent, and your kid comes running in saying, "Oh my God, somebody's trying to come in the front door. Somebody's that would be scary." To go from dead asleep to wake up to that. Yep.
Be very disoriented,
Oh boy.
especially if you sleep like me. I sleep pretty heavy.
Yes. I have to unhook my Darth Vader mask and all that. So, yes. So this gentleman, unfortunately, he went to the door. So yes, somebody's trying to get in the front door. The child says he goes to the front door, opens the front door, fires around, and ends up fatally shooting his wife, who worked overnight and got off work early. So you have somebody coming home in
Was
the
she
middle of the night.
messing with the keys, or I didn't get the whole story?
It just said that she was still on the other side of the door. When I say on the other side of the door, he opened the door.
So he did not shoot through the door.
No.
Okay.
So that's according to all the news things. Let's just go back in general and say, here's another example. You have, if I can tell you story after story just because I have kids, and if you have kids and have teenage kids, you better grow up to the idea that they might sneak out of your house and sneak home. I can say, oh, my kids wouldn't do that. And I haven't had that issue, but I do have, a teenage son and an older daughter now that it's actually totally normal for your teenagers to come home at like 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning.
Or sneak in the split level patio
Yeah.
door.
Yeah. So it's back to the idea of I don't want to diminish the fact that this guy lost his wife. He's going to have to live with that horrible thing. Did it happen in front of the child? And it all goes back to have a plan, right? So if my child runs in and says, oh, my God, somebody's trying to come in the front door, my child already came to me. I'm already like, we're the only people home, then I'm not leaving that room,
Right. There's your barricade point right
There's
there.
my barricade point. And so it's sad that we have to use these real-life examples, but probably everybody listening, if they could sit back and think about it, have had someone that came into their house that it was surprising to them, but it was actually completely legal, and looking back going, oh, yeah, well, my brother-in-law has the key to the house, and I forgot he was coming over at 3 a.m. because his flight got in from Denver or whatever. Or absolutely any spouse or whatever, son, daughter, relative that works overnight that lives with you could actually come home from work sick, or come home from work because work was dismissed, or, so somebody coming into our house at 2 a.m. in the morning is automatically kind of weird to some of us, unless you're my son who comes home late all the time.
Yeah, or my kids all work overnights. They all come. But then again, in my house, you can't get in.
Mhm.
I have indicators, right? Somebody at the door is not just somebody at the door.
Sure.
To get actually in the house, I will know that either you are getting in because you know how to get in,
Yep.
or you're not getting in, and I'll know that you're, quote unquote, a bad guy, right?
Sure. Ted will tell you.
Ted will tell me. Ted's
Mhm.
my first line of defense. Ranger Ted, he's a good
Mhm.
man, good dog. But there's other things, right?
Yeah.
So
I get there's other things. We don't want to give everybody.
no,
yes.
that's what I'm saying.
But we can come to your house and help you have those other
we
things.
don't have to rely on Plan A, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Plan A being I open the door and shoot,
Mhm.
because that's not even Plan A. Plan A is a couple other things, and you got Plan B. Then maybe C is barricade. You got to have layers of defense in depth. Primary, secondary, alternate contingency plans. That's not just for military people. That's for like everybody. And that way you don't have these tragedies. Hopefully, you can't always stop everything, but hopefully you wouldn't have a tragedy like this if you weren't always relying on, hey, I've got a gun.
You said the fancy instructor way when I simply say don't shoot something that you don't know what it is.
Well, that's all part of it, right?
That's all part of it, isn't it? So, I remember super sad one was the guy, I remember it happened in Hawaii, his teenage, and it rang true to me because our children were the same age kind of
Mhm.
thing. But if you read the story, the son snuck out, come back home through a window. You know, dad wakes up in the middle of the night to find a pretty large statured male crawling through the window and shoots his own son. You know, so there's probably pretty hard to mentally recover from that.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the what that guy's going through, having shot his wife or having shot your child. Like, can you imagine the guilt and the remorse
Sure.
you're going to have for the rest of your life?
And that's a whole nother. When I say whole nother subject, is there. If you understand people that have been through, even let's say happily married couples that lose a child due to an accident, how those marriages go and the toll it takes on a life. You
Yeah,
know, let alone
Pretty high percentage of marriages that don't work out after
they
that.
don't. You know, you could even have multiple children, and the loss of a child ends up ruining a marriage. Or, God forbid, you know, again, it's just because I pay attention to things. You have children, you think about children things. Is, you know, there's a couple. If you go back only not too far, you know, a couple years. Again, you have a college-age sister who backs out and killed her teenage sister who was laying out in the driveway, suntanning, right? So now you have a sister that kills a younger sister, and just the dynamics of how that. And those are everyday things that happen. When I say everyday things, unfortunately, people die in this country from accidents all the time, real accidents, let alone this kind of violence. That's a hard thing to recover as a married couple, or, you know, and that, now you go back and say, like, you know, you have a dad that shot mom, possibly in front of the child. I don't know. I would think he would have had the child somewhere back in the house and didn't have to witness that. But it's still, you're answering to your child that, oh, hey, you know, I killed mom. That's horrible. I mean, just thinking about how horrible that is should make people say, I don't, it's not about Ernie and Cedar Outfitters and going buying a $50 flashlight or going to Mike's class. That'd be all great. Have a plan that, you know, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go open the door when I don't know who it is. I'm not going to go open the door when I actually, my child's telling me, oh my God, somebody's trying to get in the house. That would be the last person I want to open the door for.
Yeah, why
then.
are you opening the door?
So, you know, have a plan, even when they don't go perfect. Know what your target is. It's horrible, because those are the kind of things gun people don't really want to talk about. You know, and when we, oh, you guys are armchair quarterbacking. Those are the topics. Everybody loves to hear about a concealed carrier that shot a bad guy holding up the liquor store, right?
Or the
Yay.
guy that
Left his children in the bank, went outside and got engaged in a gunfight.
no, I'm talking about the ex-felon that got his gun rights back. Good for him.
Good for him.
That saved the officer.
Yep.
You know, great story.
Yeah.
People love to hear those stories, but
From-
they, like you said, they don't like to hear about the guy that accidentally shot his wife.
You guys don't know that story yet, do you?
Oh, we actually have a couple of questions, Ernie.
Oh,
What?
Geez, fire away. Give me a
All right.
question.
There we go.
All right.
There you go.
Who's this?
We have
Oh, hey, now you covered it up with this. Look at this. I know some of these people.
yeah.
Do you
go
think
ahead.
situational awareness is high on the list? That's from Clancy. Clancy's awesome. So, awareness here, it's like you're sitting in class with us. Situational awareness is awesome, but it doesn't exist in real life all the time. If it does, your life's really boring.
And it's unrealistic.
It is super unrealistic. It doesn't mean that you don't have awareness, but absolutely, like some famous people put it, if you're out to dinner with your wife, you know, you better be paying some attention to your wife. You know, if you're out to dinner if you're watching your kids at a basketball game, or like I should have been watching my son win in overtime the last wrestling meet.
I saw that.
I feel horrible.
I mean,
so
I
anyway,
didn't see it, but that's an awesome.
situational awareness. Do people go into high schools and harm kids in real life?
They do.
Absolutely. Do they ever do it in a circumstance where they do it where they're all in one place, like a gym?
They do.
Better kill ratio, right?
Yep.
So last night, after
Target-rich
my wife
environment.
and I had left early after the first match and missed out on some epic overtime last match of 3 schools, so you understand everyone was watching only one match.
Sure.
And my son wins in overtime. People chanting his name. Horrible dad wasn't there. Have I had been there, there is no such thing in the world as situational awareness that I wouldn't be watching my son win in overtime, right?
Yeah, you would have been like it would have been like you use the word tunnel vision right there
Sure.
on the mat. Yep.
Yeah. So absolutely situational awareness is important. Like we talk about in class, though, if you're the ultimate example of situational awareness, the number one thing it's going to do is get you deselected as a victim. Some guy did not target test you and decide that Mike McAmeal would be a great guy to try to rob in the Lindo parking lot, so he doesn't do it. Mike goes home, feeds Ted, hangs out with Joe, and takes his wife to the casino. You didn't get attacked.
You know my life so well.
I do.
I know.
But your situational awareness got you no reward, right? No gold star
No.
in the refrigerator.
I never get gold stars.
So absolutely situational awareness is important. But as anybody that would follow us and, you know, the idealistic type of training we do is let's train for when we didn't see it coming, because that's how it works.
I mean, the best metaphor that I've ever seen, I use it a lot, and we both use it a lot, is if you think about situational awareness or awareness as a finite resource, you have $1 worth,
Yeah.
and you spend 5 cents over here, and you spend 10 cents over here, and you spend 50 cents over here. You know,
There's
you
only so
got-
much to go
you
around,
got like
right?
35 cents left.
You're supposed to be able to count better than that. You tell people how to jump out of planes.
I know, but I don't have to do the math.
Okay.
So, but I'm saying is you have a budget,
Sure.
and right now when I'm talking to you, I'm not looking behind me.
No.
I'm not really worried about what's
There's a
behind me
black
because
sheet
it's a
right
black
there.
sheet. But
Yeah.
you know, if there's a sniper on the roof over there with the little red dot on the back of my neck,
They can't see us.
I would have no idea, right?
All right.
So it's unrealistic to think you're going to be 100% situationally aware at all times. Is what we're both saying.
Sure. And it's great to be situational aware, but you still have people that are aware, but they go and insert themselves in bad situations. When I say insert themselves in bad situations, also go as far then, if you're aware of what might be scary or bad, then don't go there. Don't go to that gas station and get your, gas at 3 a.m. or don't hang out in that spot.
You hear that, Daryl?
Daryl.
Gyro Hut, Gyro
Oh,
Hut, Hero Hut, however
oh.
you want to say it.
Gyro Hut.
Stop
Are
saying
you
it. Stop
picking?
going.
You picking on Daryl?
I got a friend of mine that goes to that place on that. It's not a good place. Anyway.
What's that? Oh, that's hilarious. Where did they? Says where to sit and stand. Yeah, I don't do the whole. I can't always sit with my back to the wall in a restaurant. That doesn't work for me.
Mike Potts has a good question.
Let's go look at Mike Potts. With target identification as a topic, how much emphasis do you put on a weapon-mounted light on your concealed carry weapon? All right, this is me personally. Ready? I don't wear a weapon light on my concealed carry gun.
Nor do I.
I believe in using a handheld flashlight. I do it mostly just for concealability. Now, you have a lot of, let's say, factually, I have a lot of customers that carry Glock 19 with, the Surefire XC1, the
Sure.
tiny little light.
Yep.
I think that's awesome. And do I believe in having a light on my gun? I actually do. I believe in you having a handheld light first, though. My 2 cents worth, especially in my home, I do have a weapon light on my home gun because if the wolf's at the door and I literally, Ernie's got a BiPAP, Ernie wakes up out of half of a coma and somebody's kicked in the front door, I'm grabbing the one tool first that can change mammals' behaviors. I'm getting my gun first. Yeah, there's other important things like the phone, right? Get the police coming, all that. But I'm first of all grabbing the one thing that has been proven to actually stop violent actions. So I'm going to get my gun. And when I do get my gun, I have a light attached to it. So that's like a bonus, right?
Well, what's the purpose of that light?
That purpose of that light is if I have no other light source.
Right.
If I'm in a situation where I am willing to point a firearm. Now, again, finger other than somewhere other than the trigger area, right? So when people are like, oh, you're going to go and point that flashlight at your son now because he's sneaking in through the window.
Well, that's the point I was making, right?
Sure.
So it's for target identification.
Sure.
Correct?
Yep.
Not for searching. You're not
No.
searching with that
I'm
light.
not going to search with that light.
That's what the handheld light's for.
There you go. So, and yeah, I have a light with a lanyard. I have a phone. So I like the whole idea of being able to drop your light if you had to, but I haven't lost it. But I am willing to, and let's be realistic. I don't know, we can't get a whole lot of Ernie on the screen here, or there is a whole lot of Ernie. But, my weapon-mounted light on my firearm at home, being a Glock 17, that weapon-mounted Surefire is so bright that, I have that gun close to me. This isn't the movies. We're not, going around corners flailing around, right? So if I'm bouncing 600 to 800 lumens off the kitchen floor with the gun pointed safely down in front of me and my finger not on the trigger, there's enough light, dude. It's lighting up the whole room. I can tell if that's, hey, is that my wife? Is that my son? Or is that my wife's boyfriend? I can identify all these people without pointing a gun right at them.
So you would say then, let me make sure I got this right, so for everybody to understand what we're
That
saying.
yes, my wife has a boyfriend.
Well, no.
Okay, go.
That's a lifestyle choice that I don't want to get into.
You have to know who you can and can't shoot in your
That's
house.
right, you do.
Yes.
But I'm saying weapon-mounted lights are secondary to handheld lights unless it's the only thing you have.
Absolutely.
And then you would obviously need one, right?
Yep.
So you need something, but it's not the primary light source if you have a choice. Is that correct?
That's correct. Kind of like in the world of law enforcement, I think what they look down on is they don't want you holding your weapon-mounted light at the dashboard trying to read a VIN number or something, right?
Right.
Or how do I get this person out of a car?
Excuse
I'm
me
gonna,
while I whip this out.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah. Remember, Facebook Live is different than our podcast. No. But yeah, don't use it for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're not searching for Billy lost in the backyard. You know, mom called and said, "Oh my God, we woke up, the kid's missing. He's only 4 years old, and we're going to go search the farm field." No, we're not waving around guns with lights. You know, handheld lights are for searching. Handheld lights, most useful thing a light's going to really do for you in real life is help you get out of somewhere, right? Like 07, 08 ice storm. You know,
Yeah.
I was at the movie theater. Poof, you know, lights go out. A flashlight to get out of a dark movie theater, you could be like a hero. You know,
Have
You-
movie theaters totally off topic, but at least for me personally, and I've
Mhm.
talked to ever since the guy out in Denver shot up that movie theater, has movie theaters become like one of the most dangerous places? I mean, they've always
always-
probably been that way.
there was
but
shootings previous to that.
I
there
will
were
say that
stabbings previous to that.
my let's say awareness of the movie theater and people
Mhm.
in the movie theater has certainly gotten a lot.
My awareness is I don't
Yeah.
go there, and
Well, yeah,
yeah,
I don't go
once my kids got to a certain age, they didn't really go to the movies anymore, and I didn't have to attend with them. You know,
Mhm.
so I just don't go there. So hopefully that was a pretty good
unless
answer
it's the
for
new Star Trek movie.
Mike Potts. Thank you for tuning in. And he's got to go. He's got to go to work. He does like good guy things.
to work,
He's got to
Mike.
go deal with bad guys. So
Other Mike, go to work. Other Mike.
all right, that's all. That's all we got for questions.
Oh, wait a minute, get Shane here.
Uh,
Shane asked.
oh, I saw Martin.
Yeah.
You're moving that around really fast. Can you see what I see?
So Shane says, has it become an obsession to identify the area so you know where to sit or stand prior to relaxing? So I think he's asking, do we sit with
Go
our back
inside.
against the wall
Yeah.
at the restaurant and all that? I mean, I personally like to see the room,
Sure.
but that goes with that whole awareness thing.
It also goes
It's not. I'm not going to kick my wife out of the chair. So hey, that's
Yeah.
my spot, right?
with yeah. Nope. Still to this day, definitely, I would say when I don't go out to eat that much, but when I do, it's always the same places. We're creatures of habit. It's easy to assassinate Ernie if you want to. So my wife would tell you, yes, we go to like Hacienda on Center Point Road, right?
Mhm.
So I always sit so I can see where people are walking in. Sure. You know, but do I always say I'm going to have this table? No. Am I always going to? It isn't always possible. When you go to like fancy restaurants that it took 2 months to get in there, you better just
you
take
sit
whatever.
where you sit.
You sit where you sit, wherever they tell you to.
Yeah.
And yes, when you're spending $200 for dinner with your loving, compassionate wife, you better like look at her and talk to her. Even though most people that go out to eat do this, right? We're on our phones. Hey,
They
hold
do.
on. I just got to talk to Ted and Mike for a minute.
Or they have a rant about. I told my wife I was going to rant about this today. So here's your rant.
Yeah,
Valentine's Day is a made-up holiday
it's made up.
by the greeting card companies, and I
So-
refuse to participate.
Okay.
See?
Hey,
Can
if
I get an
we're-
amen? Yes.
Hey, amen. How about this? You know what's worse yet? Are you ready? Mother's Day. Why don't you go back and tell me where Mother's Day was invented at? Now, we all love our mom. Great. It's number one hardest day to get into the restaurants is Mother's Day. Yes. Go ask your friends in the restaurant industry.
Anyway, that was my short little rant because
I
she's
can't
already
really
asking for presents.
Yeah, well.
Come on.
she's
Where's my
got-
present?
She's got Ted and Joe
I know.
and a smoking tent.
And Zach and a smoking tent.
Yeah, I mean, jealous of the smoking tent.
She's well
Find me
taken-
another good thing.
she's
So
well taken care
Shane
of.
Vance, I do appreciate the question, but no, I am not obsessed with where I sit. It's just back to the idea of I've just literally accepted that I'll do what I can if I see anything coming, but we're not always going to see it coming.
Shane's got another question here.
Uh-oh.
Idea for best home defense weapon for some new,
New-
and inexperienced at gun handling for my wife.
Okay, absolutely. Ernie's generic answer: a mid to full size modern striker fired 9mm handgun. And even 10 years ago, we all evolved, right? 10 years
Yep.
ago, you would have walked into Cedar Valley Outfitters, said, I want a home defense gun. I'm going to be like, hey, let's do a shotgun. We all did that. Totally wrong answer. Wrong answer for, he used the term wife, and that could mean kids. Doesn't matter. It means two people in a house. Shotguns aren't real good for when you're surrounded by other people you care about. Like, we need target discrimination, right? Because of mobility, I'm going to take a handgun. Because of, hey, you might have to like open doorknobs, get kids out of cribs, talk to police on the phone, run a flashlight, right?
Yep.
So mobility wise, I'm going to use a handgun. I understand. I don't care what caliber handgun. And when I say don't, I want a 9mm. No caliber handgun makes people fly backwards. No caliber handgun is as great as a rifle
Except
or
for
shotgun.
45.
Well, 45.
Because you can't get a 46.
Matt Wilson made a guy go backwards 10 feet one time with a 45. So I understand when people start talking about, oh, a shotgun's a fight stopper. It absolutely is. It's great. But, you know, if somebody's holding your kid by the neck trying to walk across the living room to get out of your house, first of all, we want them out of your house. But second of all, you're going to point a shotgun at a bad guy that's holding onto your kid? Most people do not own the right shotgun, use it well enough, use choke configurations, and know how their gun patterns well enough that they should be shooting at a bad guy standing right next to their
It
loved one.
requires more effort than people are willing to put into. In most cases, I think, to pattern the gun.
In
and all that.
general, we see people not trained enough for
Yeah.
the bad scenarios. But absolutely, I think a modern striker fired 9mm handgun, mid to full size, very easy to shoot, and gives a lot of mobility. Easy to hide it properly, like as in a quick access safe that it can be kept from kids or
And I'll
other
jump
bad
on how
guys.
talk about quick access
Jump
safe. I
on.
was going to add, the way we recommend storing that for home defense is
Sure.
in a quick access safe, loaded but not chambered. So the first action every time is you're gonna manipulate that slide,
Sure.
and that's for home defense. We're not saying that you don't carry with the round in the chamber because that's
You better carry with around.
that's silly. But we're saying in the home, it's dark. You're reaching into this quick access safe. It's a little safer to keep it unchambered, and then the first action is just to
And you never have to wonder
manipulate
if
slide.
it's loaded.
And you
Right.
never have to wonder if it's loaded or not.
Yes.
So okay.
All right. Thank you very much for 2 good questions.
So Martin kind of had the same question there.
Where's he at? All
right
right.
there, but you just kind of answered that question.
Hey, look at that. Thank God he brought it up. I hear the gun community push for shotguns. Yeah, I think it's absolutely a poor choice, but I'm going to touch on it again. You literally better be able to go out and tell me how your gun patterns. And again, we're going to be realistic. Don't bother patterning your shotgun at 40 yards when your longest, room in your house is 18 feet across.
Right.
So when people say, "Oh, well, Ernie's full of crap because my gun's going to group in one small little group at this distance," okay, where do the wads go? That's in your shot. Where your actual shotgun load you're going to use at home, whether you choose a slug or buckshot or all that, you better go out and test that gun. And I mean shoot hundreds and hundreds of rounds in your gun to know where it hits, what's my point of impact versus my point of aim. If I really did have to take a headshot across the kitchen and somebody's holding a knife to my wife's throat, then I can aim at the outside ear and take off half that dude's face and not injure my wife. Still doesn't mean that you're not going to have a shotgun wad come out of
Oh,
there.
well, antidote. Remember a couple podcasts ago we talked about the guy treated that actually shot himself in the leg with the shotgun.
Yeah,
Guess what was embedded in his leg?
absolutely.
The wad.
Yeah. Yes. So, and it could merely put out an eye, right? Anybody that's shot enough shotgun, especially buckshot and stuff, close up, you'll see these, hey, I'm shooting buckshots, and you see your shotgun pattern, and all of a sudden there's this big sideways hole over here from the wad, right? So it could go through your wife's face or your kid's face. I just choose to eliminate any of that, and I'm going to go with a handgun for mobility, shooting a single projectile at a time, and having lots of bullets if I need them. Even though the average home defense shooting doesn't go lots and lots of bullets, I am going to step out and say, if I need a gun to defend myself in my home, I would like to have something that has 15 or 17 rounds
Right.
without having to
Bigger
reload.
wounding capacity.
Wounding capacity, not bigger wounds.
No,
wounding capacity. Yes.
So
Not for just indiscriminate laying down, covering fire, right? You 82nd Airborne
covering fire.
badass dudes. What else do we have? What's
so
this?
Dan said he started
Team
the EMT
Glock.
class,
What?
certified in May. Well, good for you,
Oh,
man.
look
We'll
at
have to-
that,
we'll have
Dan
to talk.
Cole.
Good.
Yes, you
need
do
good
need to.
EMTs.
When it says Mike rubbed off on me, I'll let you guys have a personal chat about what that means. But no, what an awesome customer, and
Once again,
he's
don't
got
ask, don't tell.
yeah, he's got into training. So other than that, I don't know. Is it look?
Yeah,
This is kind of cool. Is that like up to the second or that? Really, pretty
It's
cool.
pretty- it's
That's why they
pretty
call it
close.
live, right?
Yeah, live.
Not the way Bill O'Reilly said live. We'll leave that out, but it's live.
So how we doing on time, guys?
Yeah, we don't want to keep you. You guys have all kinds of cool things to do today.
5 to 7 minutes.
5 to 7 minutes.
All right.
So basically, the time that the longest time ever I could run for, like 5 to 7 minutes. That's how much we have left.
Yeah.
Give me another question. Do you have one? No. Clancy Harrington says, "Amen." I didn't know this was
Hey,
like.
there's
oh,
my
we're-
buddy Dean. So Dean, let me tell you about Dean, right?
Great. Oh,
Dean lives in Maine.
Yeah.
He's like one of my oldest friends, probably.
Okay.
So I'm really happy to see that he's watching our podcast.
That's
right now.
incredible.
I know.
Small world, right?
It is small world.
Like we might all of a sudden start talking to more than 82 people. It's kinda
Dean's on
weird.
one of the, you got your personal mentors / heroes.
Yeah.
Dean's like in my top 5. He's
Dean
one
is
of,
in
he's-
your
he's
that
one of the
Dean right
5.
there.
That Dean right there. is
Well,
one of
that
the
should
5.
make people want to like go and
Yeah.
friend request him just to know that
Yeah.
if you are Mike McAmeel's one of top 5 heroes, that's a huge deal.
He's a Mainer.
Really?
He lives up in Maine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we could go visit him.
If you like snow.
That's okay. I like lobster.
Yeah, there
and,
you go.
And I know somebody that owns a gun store that has a gun range
he
in Maine.
he
so
doesn't live on the coast though. He's one of those like what do they call it? I don't know what.
Don't say inlanders.
Well, they have a word for it. I can't remember the name. But anyway, he lives out in the boonies.
Well, we'll have to have him call up and
Yeah,
talk to us
awesome.
sometime. Why is he one of your top 5 mentors? I'm going to throw you under the bus. I want to
Well,
know.
I'll tell you because when I was a young E5 sergeant, brand new sergeant in a mortar platoon, he was.
So this is a military relationship.
yeah,
Well,
I've,
you got to
I've
tell
known
us
him.
that.
I've known him since
He could have been like your school bus driver.
early '90s, I guess. He
Right.
was one of the senior squad leaders. I was a junior squad leader. He's a senior squad leader. I just learned a lot from him. And then, as luck would have it, we both went to Special Forces at the same time. So we've known each other for a long time.
I'm going to ask you one more question. Here we go. Unless you can find another question on there, I'm going to ask you. Let's see. No. Let's look for another question on there because we got only 3 minutes left. Nothing. Love Cedar Valley. Hold on. What's that say? Oh, that's awesome. They love us, and that is awesome. We haven't any haters yell at us
If you
yet.
could change,
That's okay.
Shane's got another question. If you could change
Oh.
one thing about purchasing a firearm, what would it be from a business and personal standpoint?
If I could change one thing about purchasing a firearm, what would it be?
Like I'm gonna guess that he's talking about the process.
Oh, you know what? It's not that hard. Okay, from a business point of view, what would I change is, hey, when you show up to a gun store and you don't have the proper address on your driver's license, like what is required, okay? By law. Here, bear with me, everyone. We could save everyone some grief. Even fellow other competitors that sell guns will thank me. I'll give you an example. You want to buy a firearm legally, you got to have a permit to buy a handgun in Iowa, right?
Right.
And you got to have a driver's license that has your current address on it.
Right.
Or you have to give me a government-issued document that proves you live at that address you wrote on the form 4473.
Right.
So I'm just going to give you an example. One of those, everybody wants to think happy thoughts about the gun world. We have multiple individuals a year that throw a fit because they don't want to have to go get their driver's license changed, or they don't want to, John that works for me is very good at this. Hey, go buy a trout stamp or a fishing license at Dick's, have them put your correct address on it. Maybe you go fishing one time a year, maybe you never go, but it is a government-issued document with a driver's license, with a correct address, okay?
Uh-huh.
So that's, if you just drove here 2 hours to pick up a gun and now you're going to throw a hissy fit because you can't buy it because you didn't realize what you legally needed to buy a gun, here's how to go fix it. We had a guy like totally freak out in the store the other day, and he'll be like hating on me on Facebook, whatever. That's fine. We'll call it the way it is. Is if you freak out and get upset that we want you, that we're going to demand you do things legally, like the right way, and you freak out about it inside a gun store, and you were there to buy a carry gun, that makes you kind of look like that. Remember the Human Torch guy Mike Gillette talked about a little bit ago?
Yeah.
When you get that mad about something that really means nothing, like it's not a big deal, you got to go take care of a couple things, get a new driver's license, and buy it a year early. It makes you look irrational. And I don't believe in every single person carrying a gun, especially if you're irrational. And then somebody could say, well, that's stupid. I didn't hurt anybody, this and that. You look like a crazy dude in front of 5 people, including a deputy that was in the store that you probably weren't looking at. You look irrational to get super mad about being told you need to go get a new driver's license. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Not all gun people are super nice and willing to do everything they need to do. So that's what I would change about purchasing, is make sure that there's like government announcements that go out every week on if you want to buy a gun in your state, here's how you do it. Even though we'll educate you about that if you call. If you say, what do I need? We have that call all the time. I'm new to Iowa. How do I buy a gun? Hey, you need a handgun permit to buy a handgun. You can buy a long gun if you pass a background check and show us that you have an ID that lives in Iowa, and it has to be the current address on your ID or government-issued document. That's the key word. And people automatically say, well, what about a piece of mail from Alliant? A government-issued document. We deal with police a lot, too. And I mean that loving, like police as in they have their HR 218 card.
Yep.
Or you have your work ID card that says this guy's a good guy, can carry a gun. And, then they drive like 2 hours away to come get a gun from us. And you're like, dude, you don't have like an actual purchase permit from the county. And it's frustrating. I get it, because one permit allows them to carry a gun for as long as they're a cop. But the ATF says, hey, this has to be issued by the government. And was that like super secret? Were you throwing me gang signs? Because it kind of looked like this other hand reference. But I would, I don't have any big issues with how to buy a gun. It's not hard to buy a gun legally, as opposed to what the social media or the media in general would talk about. It's not hard to buy a gun legally.
No.
You walk in with the right ID, and
Pretty painless.
I could have you out of there in like 8 minutes.
Yep.
So look at that. Eric Lindsay, he was awesome. He was in here yesterday. He actually likes you, Mike. Seems to be a pretty good friend of yours.
Yeah, good guy.
Hold on. Is there a hollow point shell? Is there a hollow point shell people should avoid using? I would say use a good hollow point bullet that is represented by lots of law enforcement contracts. I would not use things with names that, say the last bullet you'll ever need, kills bad guys in one shot. Stick with something Federal, Winchester, Black Hills, whatever, all the main name brands, and go find something that actually has law enforcement contracts. So you get free ballistic data with that. Go read about it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna count down? Tell
Yeah,
me,
I think
like,
we're
3,
about we got
2,
to wrap it
1.
up.
I got to look at these
Well,
guys. Got to
I
look
just-
at that,
I
guys.
just wanted to say thank you.
Oh
to
my
Eric.
God, it's a magical voice.
I just wanted to say thank you to Eric Lindy, Jeff Sedlacek, Pete Harrington, Ben Isabel, Shane Vance, Clancy Harrington for joining us today and commenting. If Ernie did not answer your question on air, he will do his best to find the video and answer it on Facebook.
I will do that as soon as we figure out all this technology. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I don't even know what camera, what angle. We will see you again. And as always, watch out for the red Chevy truck.
Peace out.